Welcome to Story Chats at Inspy Romance. I'm Elizabeth Madry, and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Narelle Atkins.
I'm Valerie Comer.
And we have Cooney twitching her tail.
Not going to last long, but
no,
what else is new?
But she's here, so that's good. So today, the three of us are going to be chatting about CCR with a main character who is a photographer. I do not remember whose idea this was. But it seemed like a really great idea until I started looking for books that fit the theme.
So obviously it wasn't your idea.
Yeah, I don't think it was my idea. I had to dig.
I think it was mine. I think it was my idea.
It could have been mine.
Yeah. You guys didn't have to dig like I did. No, I think the problem is that I don't necessarily pay a whole lot of attention to the careers. Like even when
that's past Elizabeth. Present Elizabeth, with all these episodes we're doing on careers, present Elizabeth is paying far more attention, isn't she?
Well, no, she should be.
No spreadsheets?
No spreadsheets. No.
For careers? Oh,
no.
You disappoint me.
Yeah, I know. I disappointed myself too. I'm like, really? Photographers? So yeah, I struggled but I found three. So I did finally find some, but
I thought there was so much scope. You could have wedding photographers or nature photographers, or somebody who does family shoots, or somebody who does models. Like I thought there was quite a bit of scope here.
For sure. So what is it that you love about photography as a career for a romance hero or heroine? What makes this a great hero career? You guys have any thoughts on that?
I like the travel. So a lot of the photographers are traveling to do different things. And so you've got some really interesting settings that can come up as well. And it's a kind of career where you can travel, but then you can also choose not to travel and set up a studio as well. So there's so much flexibility. And as Valerie has said, so much scope to just have a lot of fun with these types of characters.
That, and also photographers see the world a little differently from the average person. They notice light and color and stuff. And I find that can be really interesting. If the author's done a good job with that, then it pulls you into a little bit of a different world, a world where Cooney is not entirely sure she wants to live. Bye, Cat. Oh my goodness, that was like
done.
A little...
She claw you on her way out.
just a little hello. I'm kind of done here. I'm done too. Mutual.
Okay. It's funny, as we were talking, I just thought of two more books. So now I'm up to 5. Like as we're talking.
You went, nature photographers, I remember, or whatever.
Oh my goodness. All right. So yeah, like I said, I don't know that I have, because again, I struggled until we started talking like this. And then I was like, oh, wait, she was a photographer. So like all I could think of is when I think about a main character who's a photographer in a romance, I think of Sabrina, the Harrison Ford version, because that's better than the Audrey Hepburn version. I'm sorry. Valerie's out. But this movie is one that is very highly quotable. My sister and I quote this one frequently to one another. It is a highly quotable, delightful movie. So that's my photographer, and she's a photographer. So there you go.
There you go.
There you go. Narelle, why don't you kick us off with books?
I will. So I'm going to talk about a book I've spoken about before, which is Pieces of Forever by Valerie M. Bodden. And so episode 75, recent reads. If you want a synopsis on what actually happens in this story, go back and look at that one. And then I also mentioned it last month in episode 111. Can you believe we're up to that many episodes?
No.
Yes.
I love you, Narelle. You cracked me up.
And that episode was on Tennessee, was one of the states that we looked at. Okay, so in this particular story, I chose this one to talk about first because the heroine her name's Ava. She's a reclusive photographer who has her own studio. And when she was in high school, there was an accident and she was quite badly burned. And so she's very self-conscious. She has a lot of social anxiety. She has debilitating panic attacks, and she really is incredibly self-conscious about her appearance, and not because she's vain or anything like that, but she has some very genuine reasons for the way she feels. And I really enjoyed this story. This is the bear story. So it keeps standing out in my mind. I call it the bear story because this is in the opening of this book is where her dog Griffin is attacked by a bear, which completely freaks the Aussie out in me. So I do remember this one. Yes. And the hero in the story is the veterinarian. He's new to town, and when she brings in the injured dog, she has no idea that he's returned. And he was the boyfriend in high school who she broke up with when she was convinced he was going to reject her because she was no longer beautiful, et cetera, et cetera. So there were lots of depth and layers about inner beauty in this story, and I really enjoyed it. So I thought I would talk about that one first.
Excellent. The bear story.
And so you have.
And so you have. Excellent.
So the book that I wanted to talk to you guys about today about a photographer is called Focus on Love by Candee Fick. And you may remember that last week I talked about Dance Over Me by Candee Fick, and it's about a dinner theater company group, whatever. So Danny from the first book and Liz from this book are close friends and roommates. And we, she's comes in and out of the first story a few times, so I knew who she was. And when I realized that our next prompt, I guess, is photographers, I'm like, I know what book I'm going to read for that one. So I got to read them back to back, which is always fun in a series. Liz is her grandparents had a photography studio, and she was always really excited about that. Her grandfather used to buy her cameras for gifts, and she just dreamed of doing this whole thing. But then her grandparents died, and they were her maternal grandparents, her mom's parents. But her dad took over the company and basically relegated her to taking people's money and making appointments. And she's like, but I have creative ideas. And he's like, your job is front desk. And then he hired her ex-fiance, who became the ex right at that pivotal moment, to take pictures instead, because he was so good at it. And she's like, but I could be too. So she walked out of her parents' home, and she's never been back. So that's her backstory. And she hung up her camera, but she remembered also that she had loved to dance, she had loved to act, and so she picks up that part of herself. So now she's working for this dinner theater company in Fort Collins, Colorado. And this guy comes in, of course, hunky guy, right? And he has this brilliant idea that he wants to give to the dinner theater owners about how he would do handed shots during the dinner theaters. It would be like they do on cruise ships, where you can, buy the package at the end of the evening or whatever. And she's like, I should have thought of that, right? But in the end, in the end of the beginning, he's in town to help out his sister while his brother-in-law's deployed. And so he's just trying to put together money for family expenses and stuff, because he's this world-renowned nature photographer, but now he's here doing this. He's like a National Geographic kind of photographer, so way up there in the echelons. And she's been nothing but he's asking her to come help him shoot weddings and helping him with different things, because she has a different eye. So there's a lot of photography in the book, as well as quite a lot of dinner theater. And I enjoyed the aspects of that, and enjoyed that it wasn't a drama in the book of him versus her, and both wanting the same jobs and underbidding each other. And it was more cooperative than that, but there was still the appropriate amount of other types of romantic angst in the story. So I mentioned last week, am I going to go on to read book 3, which is about the mean girl of Gloria? And I think I probably will, but it might take a while for it to get to the top of my TBR, unless you have mean girl as a prompt coming up.
I don't, but we should.
We could.
We should not.
But we could. In which case, we'll just save Gloria for that.
Books about all the side characters who you hated in the first 3 books of the series,
and then become the main character.
Yeah,
and have you rooting for them, because that can be a bit of a trick.
it's hard.
So Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I'll think about it. Redeemed characters.
Redeem
know.
mean girls.
Yeah.
Or boys. I guess it could be the mean guy.
Yeah, there can be guys. Yeah. All right. So my first book is going to be London Tides by Carla Laureano. And
Mm.
it was funny because I did not I don't think I'd read this before. I loved 5 Days in Sky, and this is the follow-on to that.
I haven't read this for years. I forgot about it.
Yeah, it's old. It's
I read it years ago.
2015 or something. Apparently I'd never read it, but I absolutely adored it. Grace Brennan is a conflict photographer. So she's the photographer who embeds with the military in crisis, to war or famine or flood, disaster relief. She's there in all the ook, taking the pictures for the newspapers and winning Pulitzers and all of this kind of thing, because so this is what she spent the last 10 years traveling to hotspots around the world to take pictures of destruction, basically. And then the people whose lives are impacted by it. She has this whole little side project that showing the humanity behind the situations that she sort of has kept quiet. And then, but her apprentice basically gets blown up in front of her because he didn't listen to her. And that just kind of ends it for her. She can't bring herself to get on the plane to go to the next spot. And so she goes back to London. And London is where she had walked out on Ian like 3 weeks before their wedding. And because of more trauma, what Grace,
there was trauma.
Yeah, what Grace needs really at the end of the day is a whole lot of therapy. So, she's basically been running her whole life from trauma to trauma. So she comes back sort of not sure where else or what else to do. And Ian basically has spent the last 10 years waiting for her to come back because she was the love of his life, and he was just absolutely flattened when she left and hasn't really been able to pick up the pieces. And so they reconnect. And both of them are really wounded people. Carla does wounded people very, very well. They're very realistic. They're not cardboard, they're not just so wounded that there's nothing else. They still are also beautiful and full in other areas, but then wounded. It's a grittier story. It is very real. They make some big mistakes. It's really good. It will stick with me for quite a while. They do end up together at the end, and I feel like you shouldn't necessarily have to say that in a romance novel, but at about 3/4 of the way through this book, you really do wonder if this is going to be one of those where they realize that they're okay on their own and they just go off and live their lives. So, but the healing that Grace goes through, it could be women's fiction, the journey of healing that Grace undergoes. And photography, what I really, really loved about this is the photography matters. Grace couldn't be a stewardess, flight attendant. Grace couldn't be an airline pilot. She couldn't be anything else, because the photography is really crucial and critical to why she is the way she is and who she is. So, and I like it when that matters. It's not just, oh, I take pictures, so anyway, it's fantastic. I don't know why I didn't read it. I know I meant to read it when it first came out 100 years ago, but I didn't, and I'm glad I did now.
Cool.
Yeah. Narelle.
Okay, so where am I up to? So the next one I'll talk about is one I've also talked about before, and that's Finding Peace by Melanie D. Snitker. So if you want to look this one up, I talked about it in more detail in episode 84, Recent Reads, and also episode 98, Police Officers, because the hero in this story is a police officer. So it's set in Texas. Laurie's has opened up a photography studio in not the best part of town. She's from a wealthy family, but she's going out on her own, doesn't have a lot of finances. And so she's not in a great location. And of course, things go wrong when you're not in a great location. So she needs a police officer turns up at numerous times because numerous things happen. And what I really liked about this story in terms of the photography is that Tuck has a nephew on the autism spectrum, and she specializes in photographing kids with special needs. And so it was such a unique angle on the photographer one. I've never seen a book that sort of has a focus on special needs kids. So I thought I'd bring this one up again just to give it a plug. And it was a really good story. And I can't remember if Valerie talked about it previously as well.
I might have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I might have just piggybacked when you've talked on it before, because it is definitely a good story, and that angle was poignant, I think. But
yes,
I think it's helpful that, like, Melanie's pretty open about the fact that she has a son with autism, and so so she has firsthand experience of what is it to mother a child with these special needs. And I mean, I have a kid with ADHD. Getting his picture taken is hard. So, I know autism is the same. Like to be able to photograph well with atypical neurons firing is an amazing thing. So yeah. I don't think I've read that one. I need to bump that up. How have I not
part of
read
a series?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I haven't read it, as I'm not there yet. I read in order.
Or just do what I do and just read whatever you feel like.
Apparently I need to adopt Narelle's
book 15, whatever.
You have another, Valerie?
Sure. Longing for Lily by Tara Grace Ericson is on my list. And now this one is a wedding photographer, and it's the guy that's the wedding photographer, Josh. He and Lily had dated way back when, and he never really quite figured out what went wrong. She's now running a wedding venue at her family's farm, the Bloom family farm, and he happens to be the best photographer in town. So they keep being thrown together, and she's very, very, very adamant that she wants nothing to do with him. They can talk about the pictures of this thing, and that's it. She's not going out with him. She's not nothing. And it takes a while for the reader to figure out where things went wrong way back when. But I mean, that's part of the beauty of it. And the fact that they can't quite avoid each other. Well, he's not trying to avoid her. She's doing all the avoidance. So that was kind of fun. So yeah, I thought that one was kind of fun, and there's a few other wedding photographer ones that I've read, but I really enjoyed that one, and it's fairly new, a couple years maybe.
That was on my list too. That was the one we were talking beforehand, and I said I've got one that I think is probably on all of our lists. That was this one. I figured this one probably hit all of our lists.
Yeah.
But you summed it up well. Yeah. I like the forced proximity-ish aspect of it. Like, they're not stranded on a desert island together, but they have to be around each other a lot. And if Lily finds it very, very annoying.
They're going to do their jobs. They have to.
Yes.
All right. So my next one is Picture Perfect Wedding by Janice Thompson. Not Jan Thompson, Janice Thompson. And this is an older one as well. Yeah. And I don't think I'd ever read anything by her, which is sad because it was fantastic.
Just a lot of great CCR from, I'm going to say 10-ish years ago.
Yes.
So, yeah. Hannah McDermott is working. It's in Galveston, Texas. So you've got sort of that seaside ocean front town feel. And she is trying to establish a photography business. And she gets picked to work with the primo wedding planner on a celebrity wedding. And so she's super excited because she's just desperate to make Bella's list of top photographers, because right now she's number 2. Drew Kincaid is number 1 on that list. And so she sees him as this big rival, and she just fumes about how this is her rival and she's never actually met the guy, but she just is determined that he's out to get her and she's better than him, and she's not going to let him ruin her life. And then she finally meets him, and it's terrible because he's a nice guy. And she's so mad that he's a nice guy. and he's like kind, and she's like, but we're competitors. And he's like, are we? Like, we just both happen to do this. Like, I don't consider you a competitor. We could share. So he's just this, it's really fun. And again, this is one where her character growth, her spiritual growth, is really, really just fascinating and good. And it's just delightful to see how Janice showed how God sort of unraveled all these little knots of hurt that she then had made into these huge things, which really weren't things. The only reason she was hurt by these things was because she kept doing it to herself at the end of the day. It's also a sweet, just super romantic, super flirty, just fun. It was really fun. It's a long book. I was surprised. I got to the end of it very fast, and then I looked at how many pages it was. I'm like, wow, that went fast for how big a book it was.
She's written quite a few mysteries and devotionals and stuff in the last, I would say, 5 years, whatever. And I believe that she has retired from writing. Okay. And I'm sorry, because I really enjoyed her CCR a lot.
I'm happy that I found a new cache to dig into.
There's quite a few in that series and in the Bella series that are connected to each other. Yeah. And her others are good too.
Excellent. I enjoyed it a lot. Do you have another one, Narelle?
I do. Which one will I pick? I'm gonna go with Nowhere for Christmas by Heather Gray, because in this one we've actually got Avery the journalist and Gavin the photographer, and they're working together. They are on this road trip. They've got to get to Nowhere and photograph and do this article on this place, Nowhere for Christmas, and the whole road trip is a thing. And we've talked about this one before. We did a whole episode on Christmas in 2021, so episode 52. So if you want to know more about what happened, you can go there. But if he wasn't a photographer, he wouldn't have been on the road trip with her and her teenage son. So it was kind of essential for the story. They started off in New Mexico. They ended up in Oklahoma, I believe, is where the town of Nowhere is. And I just love that book. It's a favorite on the Christmas list, I think, for all of us. So we go back to that one. So I might have pinched it off someone else's list, but it had to be mentioned.
Excellent. Do you have one more, Valerie?
I do. I have 2. Okay. But let's just go with another oldie, being as we're on the
oldie
roll right now. And that is The Model Bride by Autumn Macarthur.
Yes.
So we've got a story here that takes place partly in England and partly in Scotland. So, I mean, right there, you have to go read it, right? Mac is a cynical photojournalist, and Tiffany is a model who is trying to set up a back-to-work partnership with a department store that Autumn has quite a few books set in that place. Mac's photography skills come into play as he helps her. And of course, they learn to understand each other and fall in love. I did not reread it, so that's basically the synopsis that I remember. But I do remember that there was some scenes set, I believe, New Year's Eve in Edinburgh, and that I just really felt like I could get a sense of the place and the customs and And Mac really was a grump at the beginning. I think he was in a lot of pain from an accident. And
Yes.
Yeah.
but of course, love conquers all.
As it does.
Yes.
Yes.
As it does.
Excellent.
That one was on my list.
That's a fabulous one. I did not
thought
remember
it was
that
one that you
but
guys could very well have on your list somewhere as well.
excellent. I will mention briefly Bella Notte by Heather Gray, which is part of the Tuscan Legacy multi-author series. Her main character is a photographer, fashion photographer. I haven't reread this one in years either, so that's about what I remember. But the photography I don't think is as big a deal. It just happens to be what he does, and it's the reason that he's sort of globetrots. And he needed to globetrot, so he's a fashion photographer. But he's kind of, he's kind of the grumpy and shy guy behind the camera. So that's kind of fun too. But I always enjoy Heather's books.
Yeah, for sure.
That was on my list as well.
All right.
Do we get to do a very fast mention of ones
Sure.
that we don't have time to talk about? I just want to mention The Trouble with Love by Toni Shiloh. And it didn't go higher on my list because he's an award-winning photographer, but he's effectively the bodyguard. And he's not actually doing photography work in the story, but it's a fabulous series set in New York City. So I'll just give an honorable mention to The Trouble with Love.
Perfect. Do you want to mention mention your last one? Yep.
Can I give myself an honorable mention?
Absolutely.
Yes.
More Than a Tiara by Valerie Comer.
Oh gosh, how did we forget that one?
Oh, goodness
I don't
gracious.
know. But Jace is a fashion photographer and traveled to shoots with models to various exotic places. Had a falling out with our heroine, Marissa, who stomped away and started an organic CSA farm in Helena, Montana, and who should show back up but Jace. So
that's such
how
a
did I
fabulous
forget
book.
this?
I don't
there
know.
Are thousands of books.
I love that series, and
it
didn't even flicker in my head.
And part of me is like, Beth has got this whole series about this, the Peacock Hill. Is there a photographer in there? That probably was, and I didn't go and look.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Because I already had a long list. And I cut Picture Perfect by Janice Thompson and a few others off of it. So
I think I got to about 9 and I thought, no, I can't go to 9.
No, we don't have time for 9.
So I just ignored a whole lot and put them out of my mind. Yeah, but there were a lot to choose from. I did not have trouble with this topic.
Same.
No, and then the other one, and I don't know the title, but I'll put it in the notes. I'll look it up. Is I remember that I read it for either cruise. I don't think it was cruise ships. I think it was for reality TV romances. Probably there was one. She had the disabled sister, but she was a photographer, but she went on the matchmaking show. Anyway, I'll look it up. I'll put it. Maybe it was Billionaires.
Yeah.
It might have been on Billionaires. I think
sounds
it was in the Billionaires episode.
Now
I
you
talked
need
about
to put
it.
it in the
I'll
show.
put it in the notes, but it was really good. And the photography played a big part in her character once I started thinking about it, but not, it was too late. We were already recording. So I'll look it up and put it in the notes. Let us know what we missed, because obviously there are more. And the longer I think about it, the more I will get. Why I couldn't get them while I was trying to think about it, no one knows. But leave us a comment. We always love to hear from you. And you can find information about the podcast at inspiromance.com/storychats. And if you are on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And we will look forward to seeing you again next week. In the meantime, don't forget to fall in love with a good book. Bye.
Bye.